UAD Spark is a collection of over 20 plugins recently released by Universal Audio. You get them with a monthly subscription fee, and every one of these plugins recreates an iconic piece of analog audio hardware. What's a little bit unique about Spark for Universal Audio is that they're run entirely natively, so processed by your computer's CPU, as opposed to what's more common with Universal Audio products where the plugins are run by a DSP chip inside the hardware. Spark has plenty of bases covered as far as your mixing requirements will go. You get some great compressors, great EQs, lots of time-based effects like reverbs, modulations, delays, some cool tape saturation effects and preamp emulations, as well as a handful of virtual instruments. Good news recently announced by Universal Audio is that Spark is fully Windows compatible, and the company plans to keep adding plugins to the Spark collection, and these plugins will be yours for no extra cost if you are a monthly subscriber. CMI Music and Audio kindly gave me a free subscription to Spark, and I've been playing with these plugins for a few days, and I thought the best way to show off how they sound is to use them in a mixing scenario. So here goes, I hope you enjoy it. All right, so we're in Studio One. I've pulled up a session that I worked on with a friend of mine. It's basically an acoustic cover of one verse of a John Mayer song called Why Georgia, and it's a good little test bed to show you how UAD Spark can just take a track from pretty good to a lot better with not that much effort. So I've already pulled levels balance between the tracks. We have a few tracks here: acoustic guitar, cajon, electric guitar, vocals, and a shaker. I've just level balanced them, so I'll play this back to you with no processing at all.
I've been driving up 85 in the kind of morning that lasts all afternoon. I'm just stuck inside the gloom.
All right, you get the idea. It's pretty simple recording, very acoustic and chilled out. But as you can see, I've already inserted a bunch of UAD Spark plugins here and pulled a basic mix, just tweaking some of these tracks. I haven't gotten too crazy, but I want to talk you through what I've done to each of these tracks and let you hear in real time how these UAD Spark plugins sound. So starting with acoustic guitar, this is how it sounds just by itself. So tracked with one microphone. Typical of acoustic guitar single mic recordings, there's a bit of boominess that I wanted to clean up. So the first thing I did was insert the Hitsville EQ. This is taken from that soul Motown period, one of the EQs used in that Detroit studio. And it's like super minimalistic. As you can see, there's no Q controls. It's kind of like a graphic EQ, but extremely musical. It's hard to make this thing sound bad. So all I've done is tried to just tidy up the sound of the acoustic guitar a little. So I'll just toggle the plugin on and off so you can hear the difference it's making. I am thinning the sound out, but it still doesn't sound thin, which is what I like about a good EQ plugin. I'll just muck around with the knobs so you can hear how musical these bands are. Yeah, a really nice EQ that is perfect when you don't want to get too surgical. And then secondly, in the chain for processing the acoustic guitar is the Teletronics LA2 compressor. Again, like this is as minimalistic as it gets. You have one knob to control makeup gain, one knob to control how much you're compressing. I've cranked that to max. And what I'm trying to do here is just bring the acoustic guitar forward in the mix, make it more present and punchy because it is kind of the primary instrument in this little acoustic recording. So here's the difference the compressor is making. You can see it's not compressing super hard, but it is definitely adding that weightiness and that forthrightness to the acoustic guitar sound, which just ultimately makes the mix feel more punchy. So let me toggle the processing on and off across the whole acoustic guitar track. Moving on now to the Cajon. This was recorded again with a single microphone out in front of it, and with a Cajon, obviously you want to get the snappiness and the transience of the front surface where you're hitting it where the snare wires are, as well as getting the nice boomy warmth from the sound hole. So this is just the raw recording. So tonally, it's actually not too bad. So that's why I haven't even EQ'd it. I just chucked a compressor on. This is one of the 1176 variants you get in the Spark bundle. And what I wanted to do is just smooth out the hits, because some of the hits are louder than others, and I just wanted to smooth those out. So I've got the attack time as slow as possible to let those transients through. I'm compressing in a really high ratio, about 12:1. And the release is wound up really quick. So it should be adding presence and a bit more level to the decay of those hits. I think that's doing a great job. And what I love about these plugins, again, as with the hardware, this is why these bits of hardware are so renowned and classic, is it doesn't take a lot of effort to just impart a really nice sonic signature to the track that you're processing. And you can hear that bitey, aggressive nature of the 1176 being imparted on the Cajon that I think is just really pleasing. So let me just take you through the effects quickly, because I've got a reverb and a delay. I'm using a plate reverb. I just like the density and the speed of a plate reverb. I'm using that on vocals and acoustic guitar. In the case of the Cajon, I also have a delay, and I've got another reverb here, which I'm using on the Cajon specifically, Effects 1, which I should probably name. I'll call that reverb 2. That makes more sense. Obviously, the Lexicon is an amazing sounding digital reverb unit. It's very configurable, which is nice. I wanted to use this as a bit of a widener for the Cajon. So I'll show you what it's doing at the moment. So I've wound the pre-delay up to time it so it's kind of, the reverb is dropping slightly on the beat. Obviously the highs are a little bit much. I can turn the treble decay down there. And the idea there is just to widen the Cajon out, making the Cajon feel more spread out. Now with the delay, I've inserted the Galaxy Tape Echo, which is a recreation of the famous Roland Space Echo hardware delay unit. I have a touch of that wound up on the Cajon, and I have it synced to 1/16 of a beat. So that allows me to make the Cajon feel a bit more percussive by adding some of this delay underneath the Cajon hits. So without any of those effects on the Cajon, sounds like this. And with. Right, moving on now to the electric guitar, and here's where I've done the most to any one of these tracks. You can see I've got 3 plugins inserted here. By itself, this is what it sounds like. So there's this section where it's just really gentle, sustained string notes. And then there's this other section where the strumming is a lot more percussive. I wanted to use an EQ to make it sound less woolly, because it was just one mic up against the grill of an amp. Wanted to just add a lot more presence and get rid of any excess rumbly lows and low mids. So I used the Neve 1073 EQ to do that, and like that Hitsville EQ, it's really hard to make this thing sound bad. But I've been fairly heavy-handed here, as you will hear. So that is cleaning up the sound a lot. It's making it, might sound a little too thin actually, but in the context of the mix, I think it works. Now, what I've got after that is one of the chorus plugins you get in the UAD Spark bundle. You get 2 actually. The other one is a Brigade chorus, but I really like this one for its simplicity. The purpose for this is I wanted to put it in stereo mode and widen out the sound of the electric guitar to make it fill a lot more stereo real estate in the mix. And it's super simple to do that with this chorus plugin. You can hear those different modes, give you a little variation in chorus flavors, which is nice. But I like how easy it is to dial in a wider sound using this chorus plug. And finally, I have slammed the dynamics of the electric guitar track using this 1176 variant. So here's how it sounds with all 3 plugins activated. So you can hear, because it's compressing so hard, it's actually making this first section, the picked sustained section, as loud as the percussive strum section, which is kind of what I wanted because it allows everything to sit in a more predictable level in the mix. So let's just listen to these instruments again with and without processing. So this is the acoustic guitar, cajon, and electric guitar. All right, now moving on to the vocal. Here's how the vocals sound completely dry.
I've been driving up 85 in the kind of morning that lasts all afternoon. I'm just stuck inside the gloom.
So pretty good sounding vocal track already. I'll just turn those effects off so you can hear it's properly dry. Now, this is one of the hero plugins of UAD Spark, in my opinion. It's a full channel strip based off an API 500 series collection of modules. And basically anything you want to do lives in here. You even have 2 different types of EQ. You have like a graphic EQ and like individual 4 bands with a bit more control. It's probably my favorite of the bunch. This vocal, all it needed was this plugin, and I could compress, EQ, and just get it sounding pretty polished and tight with a single instance of this plug. Right, so I'll turn the compressor module off and just toggle the EQ module so you can hear its character a little bit.
4 more exits to my apartment, but I am tempted to keep the car and drive and leave it all behind.
As I said, there is this other option. If you want to use a graphic EQ style, you obviously get more bands, but you don't get sweepable frequencies that way. But yeah, I love this thing. So easy to pull a good sounding track, and it's got that aggression of the API hardware that I love. It's more than just an EQ thing, it's a character thing, which I think UAD has recreated really well in this plugin. Now, of course, you get a compressor as well. I'll show you how it's sounding with the compression on.
4 more exits to my apartment, but I am tempted to keep the car and drive.
You can see I'm compressing it super hard. One place where you can really hear the difference is on this line here. You can see some words are much louder than the others. So if I turn the compressor off, here's how it sounds.
I'm just stuck inside the gloom.
Stuck inside, it really kind of pounces out at you. But with the compressor on, listen to how well it tames that.
I'm just stuck inside the gloom.
So I wouldn't call this a transparent compressor because it is imparting, again, a certain character, but it's also not creating the ugly artifacts that you don't want to hear when you're compressing. I think it's perfect for vocals.
I've been driving up 85 in the kind of morning that lasts all afternoon. I'm just stuck inside the gloom.
So that's the vocals, and now let me just chuck on reverb and delay with the vocals. As I mentioned, I've got this pure plate reverb. I'll show you how that sounds just by itself.
I've been driving up 85 in the kind of morning that lasts all afternoon. I'm just stuck inside the gloom.
It is quite a wide and somewhat cavernous reverb, but I wanted it to have a real sense of depth given that the acoustic tracks are already so dry. So it just gives the vocals some space to live in. With the delay here, I basically pulled up a slapback, essentially. And all I'm trying to do here with the vocals is just add a shadow behind the sound. And it just adds some like three-dimensionality and some depth behind the vocal tracks. I'll show you how that's sounding.
I've been driving up 85 in the kind of morning that lasts all afternoon. I'm just stuck inside the gloom.
I like the lo-fi tape-ish nature of this delay. I think that works perfectly in like not getting in the way, not intruding upon the presence of the lead vocal, but it's just subtly adding the step. So I don't even want to hear it in the mix. I just want to notice the vocals have something missing when I take it away, if that makes sense. So let's have a listen to the whole mix and I'll toggle the delay on and off.
I've been driving up 85 in the kind of morning that lasts all afternoon. I'm just stuck inside the gloom. 4 more exits to my apartment, but I am tempted to keep the car and drive and leave it all behind. I've been driving up 85 in the kind of morning that lasts all afternoon. I'm just stuck inside the gloom. 4 more exits to my apartment, but I am tempted.
Again, what stands out to me is I haven't used any of these plugins to be really surgical and do some really fine detailed tweaks. It's all pretty broad brushstroke changes that I'm making, and it pays off when you zoom out and listen to the whole mix. These are really good sounding plugs. Now, the icing on the cake are the bus processing plugins. You get this tape machine emulation, which is subtle, but it is adding some warmth and just rounding out the rough edges of the mix. I'll see if you can hear it.
I've been driving up 85 in the kind of morning that lasts all afternoon. I'm just stuck inside the gloom.
Just gluing things together a little. You can hear it on the high end of the acoustic guitar. Some of the Cajon hits makes it sound more enveloping, more cohesive. And finally, the API bus compressor. This is a classic. I've always loved putting this on the master bus. And here's how it sounds with this over the whole mix.
I've been driving up 85 in the kind of morning that lasts all afternoon. I'm just stuck inside the gloom. 4 more exits to my apartment, but I am tempted to keep the car and drive and leave it all behind.
So there you go. That's just pulling together a quick mix of 4 or 5 tracks of a simple acoustic song using only UAD Spark plugins. And it was a complete joy to use these plugins. They're all musical. They're not super CPU intensive, so I was able to put multiple instances of these on single tracks, and the computer didn't complain at all. And they're actually really faithful recreations of the hardware counterparts that they're emulating, which is always nice. If you're coming from studio environment and you have certain favorites, you like using 1176s on drums, you like using LA2As on vocals, you can be pretty confident that you'll pull a very similar sonic signature using these UAD Spark emulation plugins.